Hi everyone, welcome back to another anatomy episode. In today's lesson, we are going to go over Unit 1 Histology. So, this is going to be kind of your very basic rudimentary histology, such as simple squamous, simple cuboidal, and columnar epithelial tissue. We're also going to look at some nervous tissue and scalp tissue. So please like and subscribe for more content in the future. And without further ado, let's get into the video. So starting off, we are going to be looking at stratified squamous epithelium. So there are four main things that you need to know for this type of epithelial tissue. The first of which is your natural border, which is basically going to be your most superficial border. So over here in black that I have labeled, that is your natural border. Then we have the cell's nuclei. If you see all of these tiny little purple dots that are here within the kind of like top layer, these are going to be the cell nuclei. So over here, both of those are your cell nuclei. Next, you have the basement membrane. Basement membrane is going to be this thicker purple layer down below over here. You can kind of see that there is a lot more cells over here. That portion is your basement membrane. And another good way to kind of like differentiate that it is the basement is because under it and below it, now you have a different type of tissue that is starting. And so it's the ending of the stratified squamous, and now you are starting a different type of tissue. This tissue that is over here, kind of having a very fibrous, stringy texture. So this tissue right over there, that is going to be your underlying connective tissue. So connective tissue right over here. So that was the simple or the stratified squamous epithelium. As you can see, very simple, not a lot of hard components to memorize. Now we're going to look at simple squamous. Simple squamous is even easier to understand. You have your cell's nuclei, which are these purple looking dots in the middle of each of these cells. So right over there, cells, nuclei. Then around it, you're going to have this whitish space. So like all of this space that is around the nuclei inside of the cell, that is your cytoplasm. So it is inside of the cell, and it's basically just like all of the space that is around the nuclei. Then we have individual cell plasma membranes. Those are all of these little lines that are connecting each cell from the other cells. Another name for this is the plasmamella. So, kind of the border of each cell is known as the plasmamella. Right over there. All right, that's everything for simple squamous. So, again, very easy to understand and to memorize. Just three things. Next, we are going to simple cuboidal epithelial tissue. First, you have your apical border, which is the most superficial border. I think of it as this border that is inside of all of these rings of cuboidal tissue. So over here in black, this inside border, and it is closest to the lumen. The lumen is just this white space inside of each ring of cuboidal tissue. So this is your apical border. Next, you have your basement membrane, similarly to the other tissue that we looked at. Basement membrane is going to be on the outside, and it's over here, kind of just like this glue that is anchoring down the rings of tissue. So over here as well, that is your basement membrane. Next, we have the cell's nuclei. Again, it is going to be a dot in the middle of each cell. So these kind of like purple pinkish looking dots over here in the middle. These are all of the different cell nuclei. The next terminology that is good to know is the cytoplasm. Again, same thing. It is the space that is around it. So just all of that space, this space over here, cytoplasm. I'm not going to write it down again because I've kind of just highlighted it already, but you can see the spelling over here in the checklist. But that is your cytoplasm. And then plasmamella, same thing as I went up above. It is the border of each individual cell. So plasmamella, border of each individual cell, as you can see with the simple squamous epithelial. And same thing for simple cuboidal. It is the border around each cell. Plasmamella. Ooh, that one's hard to say. Next, simple columnar. Same thing over here. Your apical border is going to be over here, deepest and closest to the lumen. Then you have your basement membrane, which is surrounding the outside. It's this area over here and going all the way around. So over here as well. This is your basement membrane. Then you have cell's nuclei, which is going to be all of these blue little dots. Cytoplasm is the purple that is around the blue dots, and plasmamella is the border of each columnar cell. The main difference between columnar and cuboidal is going to have a more square shape, while columnar is going to have more of a rectangular shape. So that is a good way to differentiate. Columnar, the nuclei will also kind of be pushed to one side of the cell, while in cuboidal, it's typically still within the center of the cell. So if you guys ever have histology on your test and you're having trouble differentiating whether it's cuboidal or columnar, my tip would be to look at the nuclei and see, is it in the middle of the cell? If yes, you can go ahead and think that it is cuboidal. And if the nuclei is pushed off to one side of the cell, as it is seen over here, for example, this cell where my pointer is circling around, the nuclei is pushed a little bit more to the left. So if it's pushed, then go ahead and deduce that it is columnar. All right, next, moving on, we have smooth muscle. For this first unit, you only need to know two things of smooth muscle: the nuclei of the cells, which again are these purple little dots, and then the muscle fibers is basically just going to be all of these stringy little fibers that are coming across there. Now, the only part on this image that is showing smooth muscle is going to be from here, where this line is, to here at the border. So this stringy area, this is going to be your smooth muscle. This area, that is a different type of muscle and other cells. It is not smooth muscle tissue. All right, moving on. Now we have dense irregular connective tissue. So, the first of which is the nuclei of the fibroblasts, or just fibroblasts. And this one is really nice. It has been labeled already. So these purple little dots over here, each one of these little dots is a fibroblast, however you want to pronounce it. You can also see that there is one here, over there, there's here, another one. They're all over the place. Elastic fibers is the next thing. Elastic fibers are basically going to be these stringy, light pink, wispy areas around here. So all of this would be elastic fiber. Now, collagen fiber is going to be a little bit more dense looking and it's going to be a darker stain. So over here you can see that this is a light pink color, and over here, this one over here, which is a collagen fiber, this is a dark pink color. Here is another collagen fiber right over here. All right, moving on. Now we have nervous tissue. Nervous tissue is really cool because it kind of looks exactly like one of those nervous models. So you have the soma of the neuron, aka the cell body of the neuron, is this kind of like big triangular blob looking thing. Then you have your nucleus, which is this lighter blue circle in the center. And it might be a little bit hard to see, but I'll zoom in. Right in the middle of this lighter blue circle, there is a singular dot over here. That dot is your nucleolus. So it goes nucleus and then nucleolus within it. And then you have your dendrites and axons. For this course, you will not be asked to differentiate just because it is very hard and you would need to identify the axon hillock before you could identify the axon. So this over here, these extensions coming off of the cell body, these could be considered to be axons or dendrites. Either or goes. Next, you have your neuroglia. Neuroglia is any tiny little dot that is on the outside and it is not part of the soma or cell body of the neuron. So, all of these purple dots over here are also neuroglia. Over here, up at the top, we have a couple, and then as well where the diagram is pointing to them. So, that is everything for neuron tissue. Next, we are going to move on to hyaline cartilage. Hyaline cartilage is really cool to me, at least. It kind of looks like tons of little like Tide Pods before they have been like completely developed. So it's really, really cool to look at. First, you have your chondrocytes. Chondrocytes are going to be these blue dots that are inside the bigger circle. The reason for this is because chondrocytes are developed cells, while chondroblasts are like immature cells that haven't fully been developed yet. So, and they are cartilage cells. So, chondrocytes, developed cartilage cells, chondroblasts, immature cartilage cells. So, think of it as like your chondroblasts is just the little purple dot before it has matured and before it has gained its circle around it, which then it is a chondrocyte within lacunae. The next thing is the matrix. The matrix is literally just referring to this whole kind of like region of the hyaline cartilage. So, the portion where you can see the difference between the chondroblasts and chondrocytes, that is considered to be the matrix because it shows the evolution of the cell from immature to mature. Moving on, your scalp. This one is really cool. I love looking at the scalp because you can also kind of like see what color hair a person has sometimes. This image, it doesn't really do a great job of showing the person's hair color, but we can deduce that it is most likely going to be brown just because over here you can see some brownness as well as over here. Um, I one time had a scalp slide that the person had really dark brown hair, and it was really cool to kind of like be able to see that and learn a little bit of the person from the slide. So, first you have your hair follicle. Hair follicle is going to just be this whole thing over here. So, the canal where the hair is sitting. Hair root is going to be talking about the actual color inside. So, this bigger circle all around over here, that is your hair follicle. I'll type that out right over there. And then with intern, you can see the brown and like the beginning of the hair. That is your hair root. All right. Next, you have your eccrine glands and your sebaceous glands. So, for instance, on this diagram, you can see over here kind of this circle. That would be an eccrine gland. And an eccrine gland is in charge of producing that salty, more watery type of sweat, and it is not going to have any odor. So that is what eccrine glands are in charge of. If you guys have heard of apocrine glands are going to be the ones that produce that waxy type of sweat. It's waxy, fattier, and it also is going to have more of a smell to it. Now, if we zoom in on this hair follicle region over here, this one is actually really nice, and I love this little kind of segment within the whole slide because you can see the hair shaft or the hair root over here. Hair root is in the center. Then you can see your sebaceous glands, which are these guys over here. If your scalp ever gets like sweaty or your oily hair is due to those sebaceous glands, and they're basically kind of just like secreting oil in order to moisturize your scalp, make sure that it doesn't dry out. Sebaceous glands are also found in your skin. So if you have an oily skin type, then that is because those sebaceous glands are excreting oil and it goes onto the surface of your face through your pores. Now, this tiny little strip of pink over here, this is going to be your erector pili muscle, and you can see that it goes and it connects to the hair follicle or the hair shaft over here. So this skinny piece of pink is your erector pili muscle. And the reason that I was explaining how the muscle attaches to your hair follicle is because when you get goosebumps, this muscle is going to contract. So it's going to lengthen out and it's going to pull the hair to stand up straight on your body. So that's why they say if you have a sensation of fear, then the hair stands up straight on the top of your skin. Or if you're really cold, then that muscle is going to contract your hair follicles are going to kind of stand up straight and you're going to get goosebumps on the top of your skin. So, this is a really cool muscle, and even though you can't see it well on the rest of the hair follicles, there is an erector pili muscle that is connected to every single hair. So, all of these hairs and all of the hair on your body has a muscle attached to it, which I thought was really, really cool because it's so tiny and so minuscule. All right, moving on. This is actually our last tissue. Good job, guys, for staying until the end. So, this is your adipose tissue, in other words, just fat tissue. So, first you have your fibroblasts. Are these, again, tiny purple little dots that are in between the adipose bubbles. So, each little dot is a fibroblast. And then each of these bubbles itself is an adipose cell. So these can get really, really big and inflamed, kind of like the more fat that is excreted over here, then they kind of just keep up swelling and keep up expanding. Now, the extracellular matrix is going to be anywhere where these adipose fat cells are not. So you can see over here, there is a little segment of pink in the center over here. This could be considered your extracellular matrix because that segment of pink is not an adipose bubble tissue. Extracellular matrix. Oops, that was spelled incorrectly. Cellular. All right. Very last thing, interwoven collagen fibers, aka just collagen fibers. Basically, in between your fat cells, you're going to have little thin strips of collagen. Here's a really great place where you can see that over here. You can see this like pink layer over here that is very clearly not adipose tissue. This is your collagen fibers. Collagen fibers over here. And you can also see more collagen fibers on the other side of this picture. Over here are also some collagen fibers. All right, so that was everything for this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. If you have any video recommendations, please let me know. Questions, concerns, also put them in the comments. I am also an anatomy tutor, so if you would like some extra help with your anatomy course, please just let me know and I will contact you with an email that we can communicate through, and then just set up some study sessions. So great job, guys. You guys got this. Keep on studying. You guys are doing amazing. And thank you so much for listening. Goodbye, and I'll see you next time.